There is a rhythm to existence, a silent pulse beneath the noise of our days. We move through life like notes in an unfinished symphony, sometimes harmonious, sometimes dissonant, yet always part of something greater than ourselves. The moments of doubt, the quiet struggles, the unanswered questions. These are not pauses in our journey, they are the rests between the notes, the spaces that give the melody its meaning. But even the most beautiful composition needs a listener, a witness to its unfolding. We are not meant to navigate this grand orchestration alone. We need someone to remind us that our song matters, that our presence is not an accident but a deliberate stroke in the artistry of existence. Because belief is not just an emotion, it is an act of creation. And sometimes all it takes is one person to see the music in us before we can hear it ourselves. There's something extraordinary about the way life unfolds. At first glance, it feels random, chaotic even. We move through our days, making decisions, facing challenges, meeting people who seem to enter and exit our lives like passing ships in the night. And yet, if we step back, if we really look, we start to see patterns. We begin to notice that we are not isolated dots scattered on a blank canvas, but rather points of connection in a vast and intricate design. Think about it. Every great story, every profound transformation, every moment that changed the course of someone's life, none of it happened in isolation. There was always someone, somewhere, who showed up at just the right moment, someone who saw what we couldn't yet see in ourselves, someone who held up a mirror, not to reflect who we were, but to reveal who we could become. Maybe it was a teacher who recognized our potential before we even knew what potential meant. Maybe it was a friend who stood by us when we felt small, reminding us that we were worthy. Maybe it was a stranger whose words lingered long after they walked away, shifting something deep inside us. We are not meant to walk this path alone. And not just in the obvious way, not just because human connection is nice or comforting, but because life itself, our very existence, is built on connection. The trees do not grow in isolation. Their roots intertwine beneath the soil, sharing resources, supporting one another. The stars do not shine in solitude. They form constellations that have guided travelers for centuries. Everything in nature tells the same story. We are stronger, clearer, and more whole when we are seen, truly seen, by another. And yet, so often, we convince ourselves that we have to do it alone, that we have to prove ourselves first, that we have to be strong enough, capable enough, worthy enough before anyone will believe in us. But that's not how belief works. Belief is not earned. It is gifted. It is offered freely, sometimes undeservedly, by those who have the vision to see beyond our current state. And when someone believes in us, really believes in us, something incredible happens. We start to hear a different story about ourselves. We start to see possibility where before there was only doubt. We start to feel, maybe for the first time, that we are part of something bigger, that we belong to this vast, unfolding symphony of existence. You see, the most powerful thing we can experience is not the certainty of our own abilities, but the unwavering belief of another in the moments we cannot yet see our own strength. That belief acts as a bridge, carrying us from where we are to where we are meant to be. So if you've ever felt small, if you've ever doubted your place in the world, if you've ever wondered whether your presence really matters, know this: you were never meant to do this alone. The people who believe in you, the ones who see something in you before you see it yourself, they are not accidents. They are part of the design. A reminder that you were never just a single note in the vastness of existence. You were always part of the music. There's a moment in every great story, every success, every breakthrough, where someone steps in and changes everything. It's rarely dramatic. It doesn't come with a grand announcement or a swelling soundtrack in the background. More often than not, it's quiet, a conversation, a single sentence, a moment so small that at the time it almost feels insignificant. And yet looking back, we realize it wasn't insignificant at all. It was the moment someone believed in us before we believed in ourselves. Think about it. The greatest minds, the most inspiring leaders, the innovators who reshaped industries and changed the course of history, they didn't get there alone. There was always someone, a teacher, a mentor, a friend, maybe even a stranger, who saw something in them that they hadn't yet seen in themselves. Someone who gave them permission to believe in a version of themselves they weren't quite ready to embrace. It's easy to assume that success is built on sheer talent, hard work, and perseverance. And yes, those things matter, but before any of that, before the long hours and the late nights, before the risks and the failures and the triumphs, there is something even more fundamental. There is belief. Because before we can become, we must first be seen. There's an old story about a sculptor who, when asked how he created such breathtaking statues, simply replied, "I see the angel in the stone, and I carve until I set it free." That is what belief does. It sees past the rough edges, past the fear and uncertainty, past the self-doubt, and it recognizes something beautiful that is waiting to emerge. But here's the thing about belief. It doesn't work like a light switch. It's not instinct. It's not a one-time event. It's a slow, steady process of being reminded again and again until one day we start to believe it too. It's the teacher who keeps saying, "You've got something special." The coach who tells us, "I see leadership in you." The friend who refuses to let us give up when we want to walk away. And sometimes belief doesn't come in words at all. Sometimes it's just presence. A steady, unwavering presence that says, "I'm here, I see you, keep going." That kind of belief is powerful. It's life-changing. Because the truth is, we don't rise to meet our own expectations. We rise to meet the expectations of those who believe in us. When someone sees us as capable, we start acting like we are. When someone treats us like we matter, we begin to believe that we do. When someone refuses to let us settle for less than we are capable of, we find ourselves striving for something greater. So if you've ever had someone in your life who believed in you before you were ready to believe in yourself, who spoke words of encouragement, who pushed you when you wanted to stop, who reminded you of your potential even when you couldn't see it, hold on to that, because they weren't just offering support. They were offering a vision of you that was bigger than the one you had for yourself. And if you haven't had that person yet, know this. Sometimes belief comes in unexpected ways from unexpected people at unexpected times. But when it does, when someone sees something in you that you cannot yet see, listen, hold on to it, because that moment is not random. It is a spark, an invitation, a glimpse of the future that is waiting for you. And one day, without even realizing it, you will become that person for someone else. Because the greatest gift we ever receive is not success. It's the chance to pass belief forward. There are moments in life when everything feels still. Not peaceful, not calm, just still, as if the world has pressed pause while everyone else moves forward. These are the moments when doubt creeps in, when uncertainty lingers just long enough to make us question whether we are moving in the right direction at all. And in those moments, it's easy to mistake stillness for failure, to assume that if we don't see progress, there must not be any. But that's not how life works. That's not how growth works. Because just like in music, the rests are just as important as the notes. Think about a symphony. If there were no pauses, no spaces between the notes, it would just be noise, constant, overwhelming, meaningless noise. But the silence in between gives the melody its depth, its richness, its meaning. The pauses are what allow the music to breathe, to build, to move us. Life works the same way. The moments of struggle, the times when we feel stuck, the seasons of doubt, these are not signs that we have lost our way. They are part of the rhythm of becoming. They are the spaces between the notes, shaping the song of who we are. The problem is, when we are in the silence, we panic. We assume that because nothing is happening on the surface, nothing is happening at all. But growth is rarely loud. Transformation is rarely obvious in the moment. A seed buried in the ground doesn't look like it's doing much, but under the surface, in the dark, in the quiet, something powerful is taking place. And this is where belief matters most. Because when we can't yet see what we are becoming, when we don't yet hear the music, we need someone who does. Someone who reminds us that just because the world feels quiet doesn't mean we are lost. Someone who says, "Keep going. You are not finished yet." If you think about the people who have left the greatest impact on your life, they were probably the ones who believed in you during your silence. The ones who stood by you when you had nothing to prove, no evidence to show, no success to display, just potential buried beneath uncertainty. And that is what makes belief so powerful. It doesn't just celebrate the moments when we are thriving, it carries us through the moments when we are not. It says, "I see something in you, even if you don't see it in yourself yet." And then, something remarkable happens. Little by little, note by note, we begin to hear it too. The melody of our own becoming, the unfolding of something we didn't even know was inside us. And suddenly, the stillness wasn't empty at all. It was necessary. It was never the absence of movement. It was the space that gave meaning to everything that followed. So if you are in a season of stillness, if you feel like nothing is happening, if you wonder whether your song has stopped, remember this. The pauses are part of the music. And even if you can't hear it yet, the symphony of your life is still playing. At some point, we all find ourselves standing at a crossroads, waiting, hoping for someone to see something in us, to notice our efforts, to recognize our potential, to remind us that we are capable of more than we think. And when that person arrives, when someone believes in us before we believe in ourselves, it changes everything. But what happens when we become that person for someone else? We often think of belief as something we receive, something we need, but belief is not a one-way street. It is not something to be collected and kept. It is something to be passed on, because just as someone once held up a mirror for us, revealing a reflection we couldn't yet see, we have the same power to do that for others. And the truth is, we may never fully understand the impact we have on people, the kind word that stays with them, the encouragement that lingers long after the conversation ends, the simple decision to stand by them when they feel unworthy of being stood by. These things seem small in the moment, but to the person on the receiving end, they are anything but small. Think about the people who shaped you, not the ones who simply crossed your path, but the ones who truly saw you. Maybe it was a teacher who made you feel like you had something valuable to offer. Maybe it was a mentor who challenged you to aim higher. Maybe it was a friend who, in a single moment, reminded you that you mattered. Now imagine what would have happened if they had stayed silent. If they had never said the words, never taken the time, never bothered to see the potential buried beneath your doubt. It's easy to underestimate the significance of our presence in someone's life. It's easy to assume that if we don't have all the answers, we don't have anything to offer. But belief doesn't require a roadmap. It doesn't require certainty. It simply requires a willingness to see beyond what is and instead recognize what could be. And that is something we can all do. It doesn't take a title or a position of authority to change someone's story. It doesn't take wealth or influence or some grand gesture. More often than not, it just takes a moment of choosing to say, I see something in you. Don't give up, keep going. Because the truth is, people don't need us to have all the answers. They don't need us to fix everything. They just need to know they're not invisible, that their efforts are not going unnoticed, that even in their most uncertain moments, someone sees their worth. So the question is not, who has believed in you? The question is, who are you willing to believe in? Because belief is a gift. And the most powerful thing about it, it never stops with the person who receives it. It moves, it multiplies, it passes from one person to the next like a torch, lighting the way forward. And long after we are gone, long after our words have faded and our time has passed, the belief we gave to others will remain, echoing, expanding, shaping the future in ways we will never fully see. There's something remarkable about looking back on our lives and realizing that things didn't happen by accident, that the people we met, the challenges we faced, the moments that felt like detours or dead ends, were in fact leading us somewhere all along. At the time, it rarely feels that way. When we're in the middle of uncertainty, when we don't yet know where the road is taking us, it's easy to feel lost. We assume that if we don't have a clear destination in sight, we must be heading in the wrong direction. But life doesn't work like that, because no matter how unpredictable the path may seem, nothing is wasted. Everything is connected. Think about the moments in your life that shaped you, not the ones that felt easy or predictable, but the ones that challenged you, that forced you to grow, that pushed you beyond what you thought you were capable of. If you trace them back, you'll start to see a pattern, a series of events that at first seemed random, but in hindsight, were all part of something bigger. The people who showed up at just the right time, the failures that turned out to be the lessons you needed most, the unexpected opportunities that only appeared after something else fell apart. These things don't happen by coincidence. They happen because life is not a straight line. It is an unfolding and intricate design that we can't always see in the moment. And when someone believes in us, when they remind us that we are exactly where we need to be, it gives us permission to trust the process, to stop seeing uncertainty as failure and instead recognize it as part of our becoming. Because belief isn't just about seeing potential in someone. It's about reminding them that the timing of their journey is not wrong. That just because they haven't arrived yet doesn't mean they aren't on their way. Too often we measure ourselves against where we think we should be. We compare our progress to those around us, forgetting that every person is walking a different path on a different timeline toward a different destination. And in doing so, we rob ourselves of the ability to appreciate where we are right now. But here's the truth. You are not behind. You are not late. You have never been off track. Every experience, every challenge, every success and setback has been preparing you for what comes next. And the people who truly believe in us, they don't just celebrate our victories, they remind us, even in the moments when we feel stuck, that we are still moving forward, that nothing is wasted, that we are exactly where we need to be, because the unfolding of our lives is not random, it is intentional. And even when we don't yet see the full picture, we are still part of something much bigger than ourselves. At some point, every single one of us will come face to face with a truth that is both humbling and powerful. We are not here just for ourselves. For most of our lives, we focus on our own journey, our goals, our struggles, our dreams. We work hard to prove ourselves, to find our place in the world, to become the person we hope to be. And along the way, we rely on others, people who believe in us, who support us, who remind us of our worth when we forget. But then something shifts. At some point, we realize that the belief we once needed is now something we have the power to give. Because belief is not meant to be hoarded, it is meant to be shared. The people who believed in us, the ones who encouraged us when we doubted ourselves, they weren't just helping us for our sake, they were passing something forward. They were ensuring that belief didn't end with them, but instead continued like a ripple expanding outward, reaching farther than they would ever know. And now, that responsibility belongs to us. Think about it. Every person you admire, every leader, every mentor, every friend who has ever made a difference in your life, what do they all have in common? They didn't just succeed, they lifted others. They recognized potential where others saw nothing. They saw value before it was proven. They invested in people, not because they had to, but because they knew what it meant to be believed in. And that's the real measure of impact. Not how far we go, but how many people we bring with us. Because in the end, it's not about what we accomplish for ourselves. It's about who we inspire, who we support, who we choose to see. It's about the people who, years from now, will look back and say, because of you, I kept going. Because of you, I started to believe in myself. We all have that power, right now, today. It doesn't take grand gestures. It doesn't require status or authority. All it takes is a decision to see someone, to remind them they matter, to believe in them before they believe in themselves. And that small act, that single moment, could change everything. Because long after we are gone, long after our words fade and our presence is no longer here, the belief we passed on will remain. It will live in the people we lifted, in the lives we touched, in the endless ripple of encouragement that never truly ends. And that is how we leave something behind that truly matters.